I tried to tell y'all that Kevin Hart was a plant. Because I keep burying him, he keeps springing back the up. Just like a plant. I said some things I'd like to take back. Some things I said were misunderstood. I did say that Kevin was a Hollywood puppet, and I want to explain that. Because it might not be what you think. I meant that the head of Netflix literally has his whole hand up Kevin's ass and can make him do anything.
Hey, Buzzbuster is again here. Kevin Hart appears to have taken fresh aim at Katt Williams, and what looked like a finished comedy feud now seems far from over. Many fans assumed the tension had cooled after that widely shared moment on stage when the two seemed to make peace. Off camera, though, the situation reportedly hasn't eased at all. In fact, there are claims that influential figures in Hollywood may be trying to edge Katt out of the spotlight entirely. Stay with me, because the move Kevin allegedly made at a major comedy venue is being viewed by some as a setup meant to embarrass Katt in front of everyone. On May 10th, 2026, Kevin Hart was the featured target at the Roast of Kevin Hart, held at the Kia Forum in Los Angeles. The event streamed live on Netflix as part of the Netflix is a Joke festival, and the arena was completely full. Big names filled the room, including Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Tom Brady, Cheryl Underwood, Teyana Taylor, Chelsea Handler, and Regina Hall.
At the end of the day, I'm Kevin motherfucking Hart. I'm the man up in this bitch. Yeah! Y'all know what I'm talking about. That's right, Los Angeles.
Jesus, do you ever shut the fuck up?
Shane Gillis handled hosting duties, while a lineup of major comics and celebrities took turns going after Kevin with one sharp joke after another. Every moment was built for chaos, laughter, and spectacle. Yet the biggest surprise of the night didn't come from the roast itself. Out of nowhere, Regina Hall stunned the crowd by introducing Katt Williams. The second he stepped onto that stage, the mood in the building changed instantly. Suddenly, this wasn't just another celebrity roast anymore. It felt like something much bigger was about to unfold. The whole atmosphere in the room changed. Wearing a black hat and a long, dark trench-style coat, the Friday After Next stars stepped into the spotlight. Anyone who has followed comedy for even a little while already knows this. Kevin Hart and Katt Williams have not been on good terms for years. Their rivalry stretches back more than 20 years, shaped by claims of taken opportunities, behind-the-scenes maneuvering, and disputes over originality. Because of that history, Katt Williams walking out to roast a man he has publicly described as a puppet, an industry plant, and much more, instantly raised the stakes.
Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Katt.
I'm surprised they invited me. That's how little star power you have. They had to start inviting your enemies. I said I hate him. They said, come anyway.
It felt less like a routine comedy moment and more like a spark landing in a highly charged room. Williams went straight for it. The second he grabbed the mic, the energy sharpened. After being introduced, he fired off a line that immediately set the mood. He said he was surprised they even invited him. According to Williams, that showed just how little star power Hart had because the event had to bring in his enemies. From there, he turned up the pressure. Looking out at the crowd, Williams said he had told the organizers he hated Hart and they still wanted him to show up. This did not come across like harmless teasing between close friends sharing an inside joke. Everything about it felt pointed. The tension was obvious, and the room seemed to understand that this was not just a performance beat. There was a real edge underneath every line, which made the moment impossible to ignore. This wasn't some random clash that came out of nowhere. What viewers were watching was the result of years, maybe even decades, of tension, bitterness, and unresolved resentment finally spilling out in front of a live audience and millions watching at home. The atmosphere was already intense, and it only became more charged from there.
Katt Williams took his Emmy win and turned it into a weapon. He told the room this would be his finest performance of the night because he was about to act like Kevin Hart was the greatest ever. That remark landed hard. It wasn't simply a punchline, it was the entire point of what he was doing. In one sharp moment, Williams made it clear he did not see Hart as the GOAT, and he chose to say it directly to him. at Hart's own event on Hart's own platform.
Me and this man have been at odds for years on years. You coming out here, quite the fucking surprise with Katt. I can sit, I can watch you, I can laugh, because I'm a fucking fan first, okay? I'm a fan first. Katt, we have an opportunity in real time, this is live television, to put our fucking beef behind us. I am offering you an olive branch of peace. I want to be a brother.
Next came the quote that spread everywhere. Williams looked out and said, "For anyone just tuning in, Kevin and I have a problem, and here's why." He claimed that behind the scenes, Hart had taken everything from him before ever seeing his act. He even added that Hart used to be a 6-foot man. The audience exploded, but beneath the laughter was something much more uncomfortable. This wasn't just comedy for the sake of comedy. Williams was reviving accusations he had been making for a long time, only now he was doing it on one of the biggest stages possible, with no effort to soften the message. For more than 10 years, this tension played out on one of the largest platforms imaginable, with millions watching live, and Kevin Hart seated just a few feet away. Yet the real impact of that moment only makes sense if you rewind and look at where the conflict truly began. To follow the rivalry, you first have to understand what Katt Williams meant to black comedy before Kevin Hart became a household name. Katt had already made his mark long before Kevin's rise. He was widely seen as the original fast-talking, explosive, short black comic who turned every performance into a full-body event, using exaggerated expressions and relentless energy as part of his signature style.
What set him apart was the edge. His stand-up felt raw, direct, and completely unfiltered. Specials like The Pimp Chronicles, It's Pimpin' Pimpin', and Capocalypse became huge within the black comedy world. Arena crowds showed up in massive numbers. More importantly, his audience was intensely devoted, in part because many believed he was one of the rare comedians who stayed true to himself instead of chasing approval.
Katt Williams is a motherfucking liar. He's a liar. Katt said that I went to Diddy parties. Kev been to Diddy parties. Kev always goes to Diddy parties. I ain't been to no Diddy parties. I went to one party, and this is the truth. I went to one party. I went to one party, okay? And all the reason why that little know I was there is because he was there. Katt was at the same party. I saw him, he saw me. He said, "Shh, you tell the truth."
Once Kevin Hart entered the picture, people instantly started connecting the two. On the surface, the similarities were obvious. Both were short, both brought huge energy, and both knew how to command a stage. Still, the direction each career took was dramatically different. While Katt built his image around being uncompromising, Kevin chose a very different strategy, stepping into every opportunity that came his way. Katt built his name by refusing opportunities others would jump at, and that bold approach turned him into a star. Once Kevin Hart began rising fast, the relationship between them started to crack. The first public sign of trouble appeared in 2014, sparked by an offhand jab involving Shaquille O'Neal. What came after stretched across more than a decade of apologies, blame, and even one challenge that never led anywhere. Tension between Kevin and Katt first spilled into public view when Katt began dropping pointed jokes about comedians who, in his view, had become part of the Hollywood system. At that moment, Kevin's movie career was clearly picking up speed. He was appearing in films like Ride Along, About Last Night, Think Like a Man 2, and Top 5, and his profile was growing quickly. During an interview with TMZ Sports, Katt was discussing Shaquille O'Neal in comedy when he dismissed O'Neal as a bum.
You can tell it was Shaq's baby because he was real big, but he couldn't talk good. All he could do, he could just repeat whatever the last thing you said. I was like, "Hey, you want some candy?" "Oh, candy." "Fucking with you, want some chicken?" "Oh, chicken." I confused the shit out of that nigga. I said, "You want a candy or a whooping?" "Oh, a whooping."
Then he added a line that changed the conversation. "Get out of here, you bum, before I take the rest of your girls like you took Kevin Hart from me."
Although it may have sounded like a random joke, that comment revealed something much bigger. Katt seemed to believe Kevin's success did not happen naturally. From his perspective, Hart's rise came at his expense, as if something had been pulled away from him. Later that same year, Katt pushed the issue further by claiming he played a major role in shaping Kevin into the comic audiences came to know. Soon after, he began making remarks that suggested the story behind Kevin's rise was far more complicated than it looked. According to Katt Williams, Kevin Hart didn't just rise in the same lane. He built his image from a formula Williams had already been using for years. The loud energy, the fast-moving delivery, the constant jokes about his height, even the way he used his body on stage, Williams saw all of it as borrowed.
Remember when Kevin Hart said this about Katt Williams?
My frustration with Katt Williams comes from, you keep pointing at Hollywood, the white man, this and this. When do you take responsibility for your action? Me, Kevin Hart, the guy that sits on top right now, have taken advantage of all the money that I have, shot over 56 special.
The fact that people tell lies. A cat's on. Where are the stories? Why is there no story of anybody who ever sold it to me, did it with me? I got 5 daughters. I got 5 sons. You can't afford to be a comedian.
This wasn't a casual comparison. In his view, Hart hadn't simply been influenced by his style. He had taken the whole framework. As time went on, the criticism became impossible to miss. By 2016, Williams had dropped the subtle hints and moved straight into open attacks. During his conspiracy theory comedy tour stop in Atlanta, Katt Williams publicly labeled Kevin Hart a Hollywood puppet. That choice of words wasn't random, it carried real weight, especially within the black comedy world. The message behind it was sharp. Hart, in Williams' eyes, was not operating independently, but moving in step with the people running the industry behind closed doors. Kevin Hart chose not to answer him head-on. Still, later that year, he posted something on Instagram that many fans read as a clear response. The photo showed Hart standing with Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock at the Oscars. Its caption praised real professionals for standing together and lifting one another up, while suggesting that insecure people could never understand that kind of support. Katt Williams was never mentioned by name, but plenty of viewers felt the target was obvious.
Hart presented himself as someone firmly inside the industry's inner circle, while painting Williams as the person left outside the gate. It felt deliberate. It felt icy. Most of all, it deepened the divide. At the same time, Katt Williams was on a very different path. He was unquestionably a major comedy name, widely recognized and highly influential. Yet, he never fully crossed into the kind of broad mainstream fame Kevin Hart was reaching. As Hart was landing huge movie checks and steadily expanding his brand, Williams was dealing with arrests, legal disputes, and unpredictable public moments that often pulled attention away from his real gift on stage. That gap in momentum soon became the story everyone focused on. Hart's career kept rising. Williams faced repeated setbacks. Through it all, Williams continued to argue that the system was tilted against him. For a while, their conflict might have stayed contained. It could have remained a quiet standoff, driven by subtle shots, vague comments, and carefully worded social media posts. Everything changed in 2018. That was the moment Williams pushed the situation into a much bigger spotlight by targeting Tiffany Haddish.
Tiffany Haddish. She been doing comedy since she was 16. You can't tell me your favorite Tiffany Haddish joke. Why? Because she ain't done a tour yet. She ain't done a special. She has not proven the ability to tell jokes back to back for an hour to nobody. And they already ready to down Monique and up somebody who has showed them Girls Trip. Did you think she wrote Girls Trip goofball? Right. Or do you think that was already a script and they handed it to her?
During an appearance on V103's Frank and Wanda show in September 2018, Katt Williams openly challenged Haddish's comedy credentials. He questioned whether she had truly earned her place and argued that she had not shown she could carry a full hour of stand-up on her own. He also cast doubt on her talent, suggesting that the rapid rise of her success came from forces beyond just her performance as a comedian. His criticism even spilled into comments about her preference for white men. In one radio interview, he said he knew several women who were passed over for a 2017 comedy special.
This wasn't a case of some unknown comic being singled out. Tiffany Haddish was already a major name in Kevin Hart's orbit. They had just shared the screen in Girls Trick, and Night School was right around the corner. On top of that, Hart had openly praised Haddish as comedy's next big breakout. That made the situation much bigger than a simple jab. By targeting Haddish, Williams was also challenging Hart's instincts, his credibility, and the people around him. At the time, Hart was deep into the promotional run for Night School with Haddish, and he didn't stay quiet. During an appearance on Power 105.1's The Breakfast Club, he answered head-on. Hart said Williams had every opportunity in front of him. He said the path was there, the spotlight was his, and the expectations were clear.
According to Hart, Williams failed to show up and make the most of what he had been given. That response landed hard. At that point, Hart was no longer simply backing up Haddish. He had shifted into a full counterattack. His argument was blunt. Katt Williams had squandered his own chances, which made his criticism of someone else's rise ring hollow. Hart pushed even further. He asked a pointed question about accountability, pressing Williams on when he would finally own the consequences of his own decisions. Hart didn't hold back when he accused Williams of wasting his chances, essentially saying he failed to do the work when it mattered most. What followed was easily one of the harshest remarks Hart has ever aimed at him. Rather than letting Williams blame Hollywood or the industry, Hart argued the real issue was personal accountability, and he drove that point home with a brutal statement. Williams made his own choices, and he needed to own them. That remark landed hard. You could feel the tension instantly. On national radio, during the press run for Zero Ambiguity, Hart was openly linking Williams' stalled career to substance issues, and the moment quickly became impossible to ignore.
This is how Kevin Hart responds to Katt Williams calling him an industry plant at the iconic Club Shay interview.
I feel like you always respond positively to the Katt Williams situation.
In 15 years in Hollywood, no one in Hollywood has a memory of going to a sold-out Kevin Hart show. There being a line for him. He already had his deals when he got here.
He didn't stop there either. Hart shifted to the subject of mentorship and questioned whether Williams had ever truly used his position to help the people coming up behind him. Before anyone else could answer, Hart did it himself with a sharp, unmistakable no. The Breakfast Club interview marked the first time Hart went that far in public against Williams, and notably, it was also the last. Even years later, the exchange stayed with him. By 2024, Hart revisited that explosive moment during an appearance on Charlemagne the God's podcast Out of Context. Looking back, Hart admitted there was probably one time he had spoken publicly about Katt in a way that stood out, clearly referring to that 2018 Breakfast Club interview. He explained that Tiffany had been affected by some of the things Williams said, and that emotion played a role in how forcefully he responded. That moment was meant to defend her. But looking back, Hart later admitted he never should have responded to him in the first place. By then, though, the fallout had already taken hold. What started as a career-related clash had shifted into something far more personal after the Tiffany Haddish situation. Each side had landed a hit, and neither man seemed likely to move on. If 2018 poured fuel on the tension, January 2024 was the spark that set it blazing. Things reached a new level when Williams appeared on Shannon Sharpe's YouTube series Club Shay and spent nearly 3 hours breaking down Hart's rise in the industry. This was no passing comment in a quick interview. It wasn't a vague punchline tossed into a comedy set either. Instead, it was a long, deliberate, step-by-step attack on Kevin Hart's career, delivered in a measured tone and backed what Williams presented as proof. That conversation changed the entire landscape. The nearly 3-hour interview pulled in more than 86 million views as the comedian mixed claims, jokes, and amplified versions of events into one explosive appearance. It went far beyond internet buzz. The clip became a full-scale cultural moment. Across the country, people were repeating Katt Williams' lines at work, around the dinner table, and inside barbershops and beauty salons.
I want to be a friend. Katt, I want to move on. Can we move on, man? Can we move on? Katt Williams, one time, ladies and gentlemen, Katt fucking Williams.
At the center of all that attention stood Kevin Hart, who emerged as the clearest focus of Williams' remarks. During the interview, he claimed Kevin kept stepping into film projects that had reached him first. According to Williams, there was a stretch of 5 years when every movie Kevin Hart ended up doing had initially been offered to him, and he turned each one down because he didn't agree with the material. After that, Hart allegedly accepted those same parts. Still, the harshest charge had nothing to do with casting. It was the suggestion that Hart was an industry plant. Williams argued that, in Hollywood, nobody could point to a time when Kevin Hart was packing out venues, drawing long lines, or bringing comedy clubs to their feet with standing ovations. In his view, that rise didn't follow the usual path comics take. From there, he focused on how quickly Hart's career took off. Williams said Hart seemed to arrive in Los Angeles with major opportunities already waiting. He pointed to how unusual it was for a comedian in his first year in LA to land a network sitcom and headline a movie like Soul Plane. His argument was simple. That kind of rapid success is something people hadn't really seen before and haven't seen repeated since. That's why the accusation hit so hard. This wasn't just a critique of Kevin Hart's comedic ability or his choices in roles. Williams was casting doubt on the foundation of Hart's entire story. The message behind it was far more serious, that Hart's place in the spotlight may not have been built the way audiences were led to believe. According to Williams, his success had nothing to do with talent and everything to do with powerful people putting him in position. During the Club Shay conversation, he singled out a number of major comedy and entertainment names, including Kevin Hart, Cedric the Entertainer, Steve Harvey, and Ricky Smiley. Still, Hart clearly became the main target. What made the moment even more striking was what Williams later admitted at New York Magazine's Vulture Festival. He said he was attempting something he believed had never been done before. In his view, he had cracked the formula, almost like a mathematical equation. And once he mapped it out, his goal was clear. He said he wrote it with the intention of destroying the careers of the people he mentioned.
It's the only thing you can trust. Back in the day, they used to say drugs was fun and dangerous. Now they done took the fun the out. It's just and dangerous. Can't do meth or Molly and make your gums long and your teeth short. What the you gonna do with that? You can't even take selfies. Can't do the all, you'll die. Can't drink the lean. It eat up your liver and your spleen and your esophagus.
That changes the way the interview looks. This was not a spontaneous outburst or an emotional slip. It was deliberate, planned, structured. Every line was meant to hit with maximum damage, which shows just how intense the frustration had become.
Hart, however, responded in a completely different way. Speaking to Fox 5, his message was simple. Don't entertain the circus. You watch it. Instead of escalating the feud, he stayed calm and controlled. At nearly the same time, he also promoted the trailer for his upcoming Netflix movie Lift, effectively turning a viral attack into a marketing win. The contrast could not have been sharper. Williams came in with confrontation and spectacle, while Hart answered with restraint and strategy. One looked like an angry outsider throwing punches from the sidelines. The other moved like someone protecting a carefully built empire. That clash only pulled more attention toward the tension between them. Williams publicly dismissed Hart as an industry plant, and Hart answered in a way that felt calm on the surface while still carrying a sting. During promotion for his Netflix movie Lift, he posted, "Gotta get that anger up out ya, champ. It's honestly sad." Not long after, Hart addressed it again in an interview with WSJ Magazine. Rather than launching into a back and forth, he downplayed the whole thing as entertainment. He said that if this is what motivates Williams, then good for him, and added that he hopes Williams gets everything he wants. Hart even claimed he was supporting him from a distance, saying that kind of response reflected how content and confident he felt in both his career and personal life. Still, there was something sharper underneath the polished delivery. Instead of directly challenging the accusations, Hart chose a different strategy. He kept his distance, stayed measured, and let Williams appear emotionally invested. To many online, that made Hart look composed, while casting Williams as resentful, stuck in the past, and unable to move on. All of it landed during a difficult stretch for Hart's image. Ever since the Club Shay moment, public conversation around him had turned noticeably more complicated. Earlier that same year, his Hart House restaurants closed unexpectedly without any public explanation. Fans also noticed he rarely posted with his wife, Anniko Hart. Even though he was busy on tour, the silence around parts of his personal and business life only fueled more questions. By 2024, Kevin Hart still hadn't taken his show overseas. Maybe that had nothing to do with the Williams interview. Even so, the timing looked rough. More and more people started buying into the idea that Katt Williams had revealed something real. And while Hart's business machine remained incredibly strong, his image was taking hits where public opinion matters most. That sets the stage for May 10th, 2026 at the Kia Forum, The Roast of Kevin Hart, streaming live on Netflix. Katt Williams stepped up to the mic in full standout fashion, dressed in a glittering jacket, a black bow tie, and a black hat tilted to the side with gold detailing. Just a few feet away, Kevin Hart sat at ringside, watching it all unfold. During an 8-minute set, Williams wasted no time getting to the point. He tackled the industry plant label immediately and flipped it into a joke. His line was simple and sharp. He said he'd been calling Kevin Hart a plant because no matter how often he puts him down, Hart keeps popping right back up, like a plant would. It was a clever move.
In one stroke, he made the crowd laugh, repackaged the insult, and repeated the same claim he'd been pushing for years. Next, Williams shifted to the puppet comment. He said there were a few things he wished he could take back, and that some of his earlier remarks had been taken the wrong way. He acknowledged that he did say that
Katt Williams painted Kevin Hart as a product of the system, but not in the way most people assumed. His point was blunt. According to Williams, powerful people at the top of Netflix have enormous influence over Kevin and can steer his choices however they want. The audience exploded. What made the moment so striking was this. It sounded like an apology, yet it gave absolutely nothing back. Instead of retreating, Williams pushed even harder. He was operating on a completely different level, turning a comedy stage into a battlefield. At one point, he even brought up Diddy, and the room instantly tightened. Williams said that simply attending Diddy's parties does not automatically mean someone did anything wrong. Still, he followed it with a sharp observation. When Kevin Hart's name enters that conversation, everything suddenly goes quiet. In Williams' view, that silence says plenty. From there, he started naming movies he says he passed on, including Scary Movie 3, Night School, and Get Hard, explaining that he refused parts he felt leaned too heavily into degrading black stereotypes. According to Williams, Kevin Hart stepped into those opportunities after he walked away. By framing it that way, Williams cast himself as the comic who stood on principle, the one who would not trade dignity for a role. In that same telling, Hart became the performer who built a major film career by accepting the very kinds of parts Williams rejected. Those 8 minutes hit like a carefully planned takedown. Every long-standing claim was there: stolen opportunities, industry favoritism, and corporate control. Most of all, Williams delivered it with total precision. Everything was framed as roast fuel, the kind of sharp comedy that earns huge laughs instead of legal threats. The execution was masterful, ruthless too. Kevin Hart stayed in his seat and absorbed every bit of it. Out of nowhere, the mood shifted. Hart rose from his chair, stepped forward with the mic, and looked genuinely emotional. Addressing Katt Williams directly, he told the audience that the two of them had been in conflict for a very long time. Seeing Katt appear like this, he said, was a real surprise. Still, Hart made it clear he could sit there, watch, and laugh, because before anything else, he was a fan. More than once, he repeated that point. Fan first. Then came the moment nobody saw coming. On live television, with the whole room watching, Hart said they had a chance to leave their feud in the past right there in real time. He offered a peace branch. Not just a truce either. He said he wanted brotherhood. He said he wanted friendship. He said he was ready to move forward. The two comedians met center stage, shook hands, and hugged as the audience erupted. Years of tension, interviews, songs, and public shots seemed to melt away in less than 60 seconds. Still, that wasn't the end of the story. The evening kept rolling, and Hart still had his final roast set ahead of him. That's when the suspense kicked in. After such a surprising moment of unity, everyone wanted to know what he would do next when it was finally his turn to answer back. Kevin Hart came right back swinging. He joked that Katt Williams had spent the night claiming Kevin only got roles Katt passed on, and then Hart tore into that idea with a rapid-fire list. Was Katt really saying he walked away from Jumanji, all 3 films, Ride Along 1 and 2, Central Intelligence, Think Like a Man 1 and 2, The Upside, About Last Night, Me Time, Borderlands, and The Man from Toronto? Hart pushed the bit even further, mocking the idea that Katt skipped all of those projects just to appear briefly in Norbit. His punchline landed hard. Was Katt seriously suggesting he belonged in those movies instead? The room loved it. Hart had taken a personal complaint and transformed it into a huge comic moment, turning the tension into something ridiculous and theatrical. Still, the most shocking part came immediately after. Hart leaned into the criticism he hears all the time, repeating the claim that people say he cannot act. Then he pointed to one specific moment from earlier in the night, when he shook Katt's hand, looked him straight in the eyes, and said he only wanted peace between them. Hart told the crowd to go back and study that exchange, calling it some of the strongest acting work of his entire career. That is where the joke became brutally clear. He admitted he had not meant any of it. In a matter of seconds, what started as a playful rebuttal turned into a full-on public dismissal of Katt Williams, and the audience exploded in response. It was the ultimate comic twist. Moments after extending what looked like a sincere peace offering on live TV, He turned around and hinted that the whole thing was performance. On the surface, that fits the setting. At a roast, a joke is a joke, and comedians are expected to keep the audience guessing. Still, this wasn't happening in a vacuum. Their history adds a very different layer. There had been years of tension, talk about roles being taken, claims about being controlled like a puppet, the remark about drugs, and the explosive Club Shay interview. Because of all that, the comment didn't land as a simple throwaway line. It sounded loaded. That's why people were left wondering what he actually meant. Was he admitting the reunion was staged from the start? Or was Kevin Hart doing what comics often do, taking the night's most heartfelt moment and flipping it into one last joke? Later, Hart seemed to draw a clearer line. He said it isn't good for people to watch two black men publicly at odds, then told Katt that the conflict was over. Near the end, he added that he and Katt were friends from that day forward.
Even with that, plenty of viewers weren't convinced. Across social media, skepticism took over. One person wrote that Katt probably walked out of that building disliking him even more. Another focused on what they saw as a deeper meaning, pointing to Katt's remark that Hart was the only one in there with a soul. To them, that suggested Katt knew far more than he was saying. That contradiction is exactly what makes this story impossible to ignore. On the surface, it looked finished. They shook hands, shared a hug, and spoke the kind of words that usually signal the end of a feud. Moments later, though, Hart undercut the entire scene by suggesting he never truly meant it, even while talking about peace. What made their clash resonate was that it stood for something bigger than two comedians trading shots. To many people, it reflected a deeper divide: authenticity against commercial success, raw old-school edge versus polished mainstream appeal. Throughout his career, Williams has presented himself as the blunt truth teller, someone unwilling to follow the Hollywood playbook, even when that choice came with a heavy price. Hart, meanwhile, created a massive empire worth hundreds of millions by taking the opposite path. He embraced opportunity, adjusted to the moment, and mastered the system better than almost anyone around him. Even more surprising, Hart showed a level of grace his harshest critics seldom acknowledge. He let Williams go after him publicly, took the criticism, and still chose to offer peace. Williams, on the other hand, showed he could turn every frustration into sharp comedy without completely destroying the connection. He delivered exactly what he wanted to say, and when the moment came, he accepted the gesture. Whatever Katt thinks about Kevin's career choices or the claims surrounding his rise may not have changed at all. Still, for now, it appears both men found a way to step back from the edge. For now, it seems the tension has settled. At the very least, they've stopped taking shots at each other where everyone can see it. What happens away from the cameras, though, is something only Kevin Hart and Katt Williams can answer. One thing is clear: the video of Williams' entire set exploded online, pulling in more than 1.25 million views on X by itself. Across the replies, viewers were mostly praising both the performance and that unexpected embrace on stage. Plenty of fans called the moment iconic. A few argued Williams held back. Others felt he delivered exactly what needed to be said. No more and no less. What really caught people's attention was the twist in all of this. A roast, of all places, became the setting for what looked like reconciliation. A show built around mockery somehow opened the door to something more sincere. Maybe that's the reason it landed so well. Perhaps the only environment where two comedians with that much shared history, ego, and unfinished business could stand side by side was under the cover of comedy. In that space, hard truths can hide inside a joke, and even a peace offering can arrive dressed like a punchline. Hart ended the night by dropping the humor for a moment and saying, on a serious note, I love the fact that that man showed up tonight. He showed out. Whether you see it as genuine respect or as Kevin Hart trying to control the moment on his own stage, under his rules, in front of his crowd, the moment got people talking.
Whether this was a real attempt at peace between two comedians who've been clashing for more than 10 years, or just another performance, depends entirely on whose version you trust. In comedy, like in real life, the full story usually lives somewhere between the joke and the silence that follows. What no one can deny is this: in just 8 minutes, a feud that once felt deeply serious became the kind of moment people call unforgettable. Online debate over its meaning could easily last for years.